Few anime have enjoyed the same success as Attack on Titan over the past 10 years. Since the first episode adapting Isayama's military fantasy manga aired in 2013, the series has been met with universal critical acclaim and widespread adoration from fans. Awards, mass popularity, and recognition from outside of traditional anime circles, leading the charge at the head of the pack at a time when anime itself is becoming more widespread. Even among the people I work with different backgrounds, age groups, and personal tastes, the one unifying recommendation I kept getting was Attack on Titan. Because, despite obviously being aware of the series, I'd never actually watched an episode until about 6 weeks ago. It was that show that was always on my list, but I just never got to. So other than the basics, like the steampunkish setting, the zippy knife boys, and the big naked zombies eating people, I didn't really know that much about it. I got the basic appeal, but I didn't know what had been pulling people back again and again for the past decade. So, what better time than now, with the story wrapping up its last season, to find out? At least that was the plan back when I thought that this was the final season, before they announced Attack on Titan Season 4, the final season, Part 3, the final edition. No, but for realsies this time. But regardless, having now seen most of Attack on Titan, I have some thoughts. 1. It lives up to the hype. If, like me, you'd been putting it off until now, do yourself a favour and see it, because it is such a good series. From just its first clutch of episodes, I was absolutely gripped. It's not the perfect ride like you might expect from the deafening praise. There's definitely bumps along the way, but just go into it. Let the show take you on its journey, because trust me, it will not disappoint. 2. Attack on Titan employs some really clever and interesting story devices to keep the audience hooked and coming back for more. And 3. Attack on Titan subtly ties those narrative decisions into how it delivers its themes to make them more impactful, and it's really those last 2 points that I want to explore in this video. How it takes this slow burn approach, pulling in viewers at the surface level by setting up certain exciting expectations, and over the course of a decade, revealing its true underlying themes on violence and vengeance, doing it all so gradually that it completely sneaks up on the audience. So fair warning, spoilers ahead, let's grab those 5-foot-long disposable razor blades and let's see what's in the Titan once we've sliced open the nape of its neck and... it's a bit of a gross metaphor, I'll be honest. I don't like it. Let's see what makes this show good. Attack on Titan is a story that means business from the get-go. Its opening scene drawing us in with a taster for the fear, intensity and devastation that's in store for us, showing us just how fragile the security of the walls really is. This is Shinganshina District, the outermost settlement of the outermost wall, and home to protagonist Eren Yeager, his parents and his friends Armin Arlert and Mikasa Ackerman. When he's not soiling his pants at the sight of monstrosities beyond human comprehension, Eren is an intensely driven kid, dreaming of the world beyond these walls that pen in the ignorant and content, scolding the adults who waste away beneath their shadows, and idolizing those brave enough to strive out into the unknown. Despite his mother's concerns, Eren dreams of joining the Survey Corps, and when their town falls under attack from the Titans, leaving the trio alone, they have little choice but to sign up for cadet duties. The fall of Shinganshina spans Attack on Titan's first 2 episodes, and is utterly brutal in its depiction, demonstrating how hopeless humanity is in the face of the Titans' unstoppable advance. Their twisted, gnarled expressions unflinching as they slaughter the townsfolk. They are monsters of the most hideous description, and as Shinganshina burns, Eren's resolve is forged. He wants for just one thing: to kill every single last Titan. Things settle as our heroes enter their cadet training, and we get to know them just a little bit better, with Eren laser focused on exacting his revenge, Armin showing potential for natural tactical awareness, and Mikasa, singularly devoted to Eren and the most capable fighter. We also get to meet the other cadets in hot-headed Jean, stoic Annie, devoted Reiner, quiet Berthold, loyal Marco, sweet Krista, cold Ymir, goofball Connie, and ravenous Sasha, aka Potato Girl, aka my favourite. I've only known Sasha for an episode and a half, but if anything happened to... Oh. Shit. Why is it always the characters I like? Even this early into the story, we're rooting for them as they begin their fight against the horror that is the Titans. With the cadets graduating and taking their posts along the wall, for the first time in the story there is a genuine sense of optimism, that Eren and his comrades can make a difference, and that there could be a bright future for humanity after all. And this is where Attack on Titan plays its first hand. When the Titans broke the walls at Shinganshina, it was to set the scene, letting us know what the stakes are and what threats our heroes will face on their journey. When they immediately show up again at Trost though, it's something entirely different. Our senses tell us that they shouldn't be here yet, that it's too early in the narrative. Neither the characters or the audience are expecting an attack out of the gate, and this essentially sets the tone for Attack on Titan going forward. There will be no status quo. This story will not settle. And as an audience, that gets us excited and invested. This is how Attack on Titan first pulls you in. Whatever confidence we might have been feeling is immediately shattered as the Titans pour into Trost. In true main character fashion, Eren leads the charge against the invaders, but on seeing his comrades fall to the Titans, his rage sets in and he launches a solo attack. This is Eren in full badass mode, zipping through the streets, swearing to exact the revenge he sought after all these years, and he gets eaten. I mean, he loses his leg first and saves Armin, but by the end of episode 5, our main character is dead, and the rest of the crew have to fend off the Titans without him. And then suddenly there's this one Titan killing off the other Titans, and oh, wouldn't you know, that's Eren? Within 8 episodes, Attack on Titan had shredded up the rulebook and thrown it away. It would have been so easy for this show to rest on its laurels. The concept of fending off man-eating giants with grappling hooks and oversized razor blades was exciting enough. Before I knew anything about the plot, this was already iconic, recognizable imagery, and as long as the show delivered on that, I'd have been on board. But Attack on Titan goes above and beyond. The very instant the audience feels like they have a grip on the scenario, it changes, and it keeps that up pretty consistently throughout the seasons. Nothing the story introduces is sacred. You finally feel like you're seeing the bigger picture, only for everything to suddenly be upended. And it gives the story this chaotic quality that elevates it from this cool action show about big naked zombies to this insane 1,000-piece mental puzzle that you're frantically trying to piece together during an earthquake. The story throws so many narratives at the viewer early on, masking the groundwork being laid for the exploration of its violent themes behind a chaotic myriad of action set pieces and rug pulls. And it isn't simply chaos for chaos's sake, like you'd find in something like Riverdale or The 100. It's more than just constantly throwing up new nonsense to bury broken plot lines. There's a plan here, an attention to detail, meaning that questions raised have substantial payoffs. In the first season, it's things like Marco's equipment and Annie's fighting style unveiling who the female Titan is, but further down the line, it's callbacks to things like Keith being the one responsible for Eren's faulty gear, or Dina Fritz being the smiling Titan. Little seeds planted in early episodes that bloom later on. And that's not to mention the big reveals that recontextualize how we see the entire setting, such as the Jaeger's basement. On top of paying off its setups, the show also knows when to break its rules to keep things fresh. We understand the Titans to be these mindless, savage monsters, and then their attacks seem to be coordinated. We're told they have no interest in animals, but then suddenly they begin attacking the horses. Nothing we're told about this world is set in stone, and that keeps us on our toes. And then there's building on things we didn't even know were foundations. The Beast Titan's weird wind-up pitch didn't seem like anything more than a goofy character quirk, with no real need to explain it. But in Season 4, it turns out that is directly related to a racially motivated parent-child murder-suicide, which drove the grieving father to foster genocidal tendencies against his own people, which he then passed on to Zeke, the series' major antagonist, leading to most of the events of the story. I'm not saying that all the reveals work. Mikasa, it turns out, is the heir to not one, but two ancient bloodlines, each more meaningless than the last. Seriously, she's related to Levi, and they couldn't have chosen two characters who would give less of a fuck about that kind of thing. But when the reveals do work, and most of them do, it shows how much planning went into the writing and entices you to stick around for more. In a typical twist, you take a familiar story structure and then subvert something well into the runtime to catch your audience out, once you've lulled them into a false sense of security. Attack on Titan takes the opposite approach. Rather than throwing in twists at the end, it bombards the audience with them from the beginning, each revelation gradually unveiling the underlying structure that the story is taking. As a viewer, this is both exciting because the lack of a proper structure allows a story to maintain this high level of intensity, and it's gripping because each reveal adds another piece to the puzzle, showing just how much thought has gone into the narrative and letting us know that it's capable of delivering. It's not just a good story because of its content, but the way that content is being delivered, in a way that we can never truly predict or anticipate, creating more opportunities for the unexpected. It's been a while since I kept up with Game Grumps, but one of the clips I keep coming back to is Pass the Mustard Batman. The setup being Aaron and Danny ad-libbing a scene of Bruce Wayne out hobnobbing with Gotham's finest, when his confidant, Lucius Fox, makes the request, "Batman, could you pass the mustard?" And it's a good bit, with Bruce Wayne being caught between not wanting to out his secret and his honour-bound duty to help the people of Gotham.
It's the mustard he deserves!
In the silliest way possible. The gag plays on our expectations of major revelations being played out on the most dramatic of stages. So to have Gotham's biggest secret just slip out in a casual, mundane, human way undermines all of that. Nobody would ever write a real, serious scene in this way, and that's why the joke works. So, when Reiner absent-mindedly lets slip that not only are he and Berthold secretly Titans, but they're the colossal and armoured Titans that attacked Shinganshina and Trost, I was more than a little bit surprised. This is really the biggest mystery in the story up to this point, and it's dropped on us in the most nonchalant, accidental fashion. The scene is framed as a background conversation between the duo and Eren, in what is supposed to be a post-battle cooling off episode. Ymir was just exposed as a secret Titan, and we haven't had time to process that revelation when Reiner inadvertently lets his secret slip. This is a great way of placing us into Eren's state of utter confusion. It's coming at a point in the story where we're beginning to suspect something's not quite right about Reiner, but long before we'd expect those suspicions to come to a head. And yet here we have the big bad just outing his secret identity, and we're not even sure we can believe him, because this is not how big reveals are supposed to work. Like, really? Him and Berthold? The guy whose name you probably couldn't even remember unless you watched that Junior High spin-off between seasons 1 and 2, which I did and wouldn't recommend because it isn't very good, but I suppose this is some way of it paying off, is that I actually know who Berthold is. But when you start to put all the evidence together from the previous episodes, it all strangely adds up. We couldn't predict it, but just like that, the puzzle pieces fall into place. And that's the benefit of Attack on Titan ripping up the rulebook and telling its story in unexpected ways, because it leads to scenes like this that you just don't see anywhere else. And what's equally important is just how selective Attack on Titan is with the information it gives away. In most stories, when the heroes get double-crossed, we can understand why. Maybe the spies were from a hostile nation, maybe they were forced into it to save someone close to them, maybe the bad guys just pay better. Whatever the reason is, once the rat is exposed, the motive usually lines up. But at this stage in Attack on Titan's story, it's still completely unfathomable why someone would ally with the Titans over humanity. Why would anyone, especially people who we've seen grow close to the heroes, choose the brain-dead destruction of the Titans over saving the human race? The story doesn't reveal any more about the Titans, but we can start to see a hazy line of logic between Reiner and Bertholdt's actions and some greater, unknowable machination. The writing is telling us it knows where it's going without giving anything away, making us want to see those secrets revealed, not just for the sake of the lore, but as an explanation for characters' actions, which is why the reveals of Eren's dad's basement hit so much more when things start to make sense. It's as much about what Isayama leaves out of his writing as it is what he puts in, and how he creates mystery through things left unspoken, manipulating his audience to focus on those in order to hide what the writing's true intentions really are. And drawing us in with the confusion and chaos that the main characters are living through is truly one of the things that Attack on Titan does best. Whether it's the helplessness of the world around you falling apart, the sheer awe of seeing the ocean for the first time, or the irresistible temptation of a delicious cut of juicy meat, the series does an expert job of communicating the sensations of the characters. This isn't simply a good way of making the story seem more exciting and emotive, though it is that too, but it is a crucial piece of Attack on Titan storytelling which allows it to deliver on its themes and messages. From the Battle of Trost onwards, we get a keen sense for the desperate struggles the cadets are put through each and every day. Watching the show, you feel the horror of the Titans looming over every moment of their lives, so it's easy to empathise with their goals. Humans are innocent, Titans are evil, and the Survey Corps fights not just for those alive today, but for a future of humanity free from Titans. It is a simple, compelling goal that we as viewers hope to see come true, given our attachment to the characters and what we've seen of the world through their struggles. But as we learn with each twist of the narrative, the world is not as simple as all that. There are complexities and conflicts which become apparent when the bigger picture is revealed to not be quite so black and white. And if we're going to talk about Attack on Titan's moral greyness, then we need to talk about Erwin Smith. Erwin is the commander of the Survey Corps and a character who embodies the dehumanizing cruelty of Attack on Titan's world. Even in the earliest episodes, he's someone who Eren idolizes due to his idealistic pursuit of human freedom at any cost. It's under Erwin's command that the Survey Corps venture into the unforgiving hell that is Titan territory, proudly waving the flag of humanity in the hopes of a victory which never comes, each time returning to the walls, bloodied, beaten and fewer in number. The Survey Corps suffer setback after setback, and yet never once does Erwin waver in his determination. He is the strong, charismatic leader that humanity needs if it's ever going to stand a hope against the Titans, and he will never hesitate to do what's needed, no matter how many young, inexperienced lives he must sacrifice in order to do so. And that's the thing about Erwin. Even the modest successes the Survey Corps has achieved stand atop a mountain of innocent lives cut short. This world is cruel and uncaring, and in order to take anything from it, Erwin's had to become the same. And when the story goes out of its way to demonstrate how each of these deaths is an individual tragedy, giving us the briefest glimpse at who these soldiers were and what future they fought for, only to snuff out their existence in a single merciless snap, the weight of those deaths soon becomes palpable. And it isn't just cadets Erwin will toss aside, it's non-combatant lives too. When the Survey Corps suspect Annie of being the female Titan, Erwin plans to ambush her in Stahess district, leading to a Titan running loose within the walls and killing civilians. Essentially the worst case scenario back when the series started. But if there's even a glimmer of a chance of it giving them the upper hand on the Titans, Erwin deems the human cost necessary. In so many ways he is brilliant and inspiring, and yet seemingly indifferent to the suffering his actions bring about. Erwin is the logical endpoint of the environment around him, the closest anyone can come to being a hero in a villainous world. What's impressive about how the narrative handles Erwin's questionable morality though, is the maturity with which it treats its audience. When Erwin proposes staging Annie's capture in Stahess, a weaker story would make this the breaking point. Eren, Armin and Mikasa are our principled heroes and would never risk civilian lives. This should be when Erwin flips from being simply ruthless to psychotic, meaning the good guys have to take him out for the greater good. And I'll admit, when he was introduced, I had Erwin pegged as a secret bad guy, but this story is never so simple. Attack on Titan allows us to come to our own conclusions on Erwin, never holding our hands to tell us what to think of him. He isn't this gnarled, hellish creature or a one-dimensional representation of societal decay that we are instructed to reject. Erwin simply is what he is, and we either accept that or we don't. He is the greyness of the story, and like any truly great grey character, there are no simple answers. It's not until his final moments where the cracks begin to appear, and we see the toll all those lost lives has had on him. This isn't a moment of personal realization or clarity, this is every single day of Erwin's life, carrying the curse of everyone he's lost. His indifference to the suffering around him wasn't natural, it was a discipline he had to learn to become who humanity needed him to be. It was something nobody else really understood besides the one who ultimately relieved Erwin of his burden, Levi. Erwin might have been the defender of humanity, but he lost his own somewhere along the way. Or Erwin fought monsters but became one himself. Whichever version of that line you prefer, the sentiment's pretty much the same. For the characters within the Corps though, it's a different story. They don't have the privilege of being able to judge Erwin from a distance. They live the same hell he does, meaning the burden of judging characters is on us, the observers. And this is how the series, putting us in its hero's mindset, makes the themes have more impact. Erwin's single-minded drive for human freedom emboldened Eren's beliefs that the Titans are undeserving of life and must be slayed. But that's an outlook that the story is keen to question. And we get our first real taste of this with the female Titan when, even before she's unveiled as Annie, displays signs of intelligence and even mercy, which suggests that the Titans might not be as crazed and mindless as they first appear. As much as this is a development in the threats posed to the heroes, this marks the first dent in what will be a series of pushbacks, questioning Eren's crusade against all Titan kind. Even from the outset, Eren's bloodlust was unhinged, but we looked past that. It was understandable, maybe even justifiable, given his experiences, and through our fondness of him and the other cadets, the story's badass action sequences, and our susceptibility to root for determined, scrappy underdogs fighting for the sake of human perseverance against impossible odds, we, as an audience, allowed ourselves to buy into Eren's vendetta, taking joy in the brutal slaughter of the Titans long after we could see that there's more to them than meets the eye. I've mentioned it in passing a few times throughout this video, but this is where we'll really be delving into the show's messaging, and where all the smokescreens and hooks which got the audience to this stage really start to pay off. This is where Attack on Titan begins to reveal its true meaning and its true terror. Each chapter adds a layer of complexity, challenging both the hero's view and ours of who exactly the enemy is. To begin with, our enemies are Titans, unthinking inhuman monsters and their unforgivable, mindless savagery. Then come signs of intelligence guiding their actions, and now the enemy might be sentient, which raises more moral questions about how we approach them. By season 2, we know that the enemy isn't just the Titans beyond the walls, but also the Titan shifters, who blend into and infiltrate human society. Characters we know, comrades the heroes came to trust, who we must now reconcile with our thoughts towards the Titans. For much of season 3, we're not even fighting Titans at all, but other humans who threaten the core, be it Kenny's gang or the government, and come the end of the season it's revealed that the true enemy wasn't even Titans at all, but Marley and the other human nations. And throughout season 4, driven to the most extreme ends of his beliefs, the enemy becomes Eren Yeager. And that's the value of Attack on Titan, utilising the confusion and chaos in its story to make us empathise with the characters and want to see them succeed. Because the minute we begin to root for Eren's bloodlust as a way for the Survey Corps to win, we become blinkered to what championing such brutality might say about the characters and ourselves. Back in the early episodes, when the series was mostly just a crazy action show with simple enemies, this wasn't an issue. But as the story and world have grown more complex and mature over the years, Eren's response to them hasn't. That initial angsty rage of a teenage boy kicking out at an unjust world has been corrupted into something much more intolerant and sinister. Plenty of people have had their say on the politics of Attack on Titan, and I can definitely understand why. Uncovering the secrets in Grisha's basement was the single most pivotal moment in the story's run and entirely changed how we saw this world. Luckily for me, I could just jump straight into season 4, but even so, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little concerned about the parallels the narrative was drawing at that stage. We had a story from Japan about an island nation that once had an overseas empire, which collapsed when they suffered a cataclysm that forced them to adopt demilitarization, and are now only resurgent again following a coup led by the heroic and selfless military leaders. Not only that, but the story was blatantly employing imagery from World War II ghettos to make the Eldians seem more sympathetic, which even at best seemed a bit iffy. So I definitely get why people were concerned about Attack on Titan's relationships with militarism and fascism, and I'm not saying you can't criticise it, but seeing what's become of Eren in season 4, how he's been broken and isolated by his slavish devotion to his convictions, it makes a lot more sense now why the story flirted with those ideologies. The world of Attack on Titan is one struggling to break free from a cycle of revenge and violence, and Eren's story seems to be that of a boy doomed to set that cycle in motion again. In the same way that it delivered its secrets and twists, Attack on Titan chooses to communicate Eren's radicalization in the most impactful way it knows how, by putting us in his place. At any point, Attack on Titan could have been a conventional, straightforward story. It could have established a status quo, could have built up to its big reveals, could have told you what to think about its questionable characters, but it didn't. It kept us and Eren in the dark, kept us guessing, kept us coming back for more. More action, more destruction, more bloodshed. We've been with Eren through the horrors of Shinganshina and Trost, felt his betrayal at Annie, Reiner and Berthold, seen the strengths of human spirit under Erwin's command, and learned why enemies exist even beyond the sea. More than telling or showing, Isayama has made us feel what Eren experiences at each stage of his journey, so that we know what he's been through and what lengths he's willing to go. So it's only natural that if Eren's arc is one of him being corrupted by hardline beliefs, you'd better believe that the story will take us as close as it can to feeling that too. Season 4 Eren is a completely different person to the character we began the series with, and it's only through experiencing his hopes, his trials and his losses that, more than seeing his transformation, we understand it. Why he assumes the world is how it is, why he's incapable of changing his mind, and why he's abandoned everyone and everything to become exactly the monster he swore to eradicate. If anyone was shocked by the political implications of these scenes, it's only because the series had done too good a job of subtly building on its themes in the background. This was the final wake-up call for those who hadn't noticed the ideas the narrative was tackling before things came to a head. And that's why Attack on Titan is worth coming back for. It doesn't just employ that intelligently plotted experiential storytelling for the sake of excitement, but also to mask and rationalise the growing extremism that creeps up on its audience before they've even noticed it. It's one thing to tell us that there are no winners when it comes to revenge, but it takes an entirely different approach to make us feel just how corruptive and consuming the pursuit of vengeance can be. By getting us so caught up in the immediate threats posed by the ever-twisting narrative, it makes us miss the bigger picture until it's too late. And we have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did intentions so clear and true lead us to this? Because that's the true terror of Attack on Titan. It's not the blades or the bullets or the beasts, it's the beliefs. The half-truths that make it easy for frightened people trapped in lives they have no control over to delude themselves into committing wrong acts for the right reasons, and how quickly even the most sure of us can be corrupted by dangerous ideas before we've even noticed they were there. Thanks for watching. The first thing to say is that I've only watched the anime, so if you know how this ends, if you've read the manga, please, for the love of sweet merciful Christ, do not spoil anything. No manga spoilers, no ending spoilers. I should go without saying, but I am literally begging you. And secondly, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more of my stuff, I've got a couple of videos that I'm going to suggest on the screen now, so you're more than welcome to hang around and watch those. And until next time, thanks.